Hello, Dr. Vieira. I'm here to do my video about my fraction lesson. I have a lot of stuff, and the camera, I'm sorry, from my last video, I do have a hard time with the camera. So don't be a hater when I have to pick up the camera and move it around. So this is what I would do for my lesson on fractions. I would start by going over my standard with the kids. That way they know what to look for. And I would do this in language that the students can understand. I wouldn't do it in the same language that's on the standards, no, because they wouldn't get it. But for this one, I chose KY3 NF1. And the standard this is what I would have the students, and I would have them repeat this back to me. Today we will learn that a fraction is the number when another number is broken into equal parts. I really want to emphasize the equal parts portion of this. And during the lesson, we would talk about the number on the top, the number on the bottom, what those mean, but you'll see during my demonstration. So we're going to do origami to learn about fractions. I got this idea off YouTube. In my Word document that I put my video link to, I'm also going to link the video, the YouTube video that I stole this from, not the YouTube video that I made. And I'll probably put a citation. Yeah, I'll put a citation too. So this is a woman on YouTube told me how to do this. So I would tell the kids we're going to do origami, and I would show them. I'd say, do you guys want to make an origami house, like my house that I've made, my origami house? And they'd be excited. So then I feel like I would transition into, okay, does anybody know what origami is? Does anybody know what origami has come from? What do we know about origami? Because we want to allow for funds of knowledge, use students as funds of knowledge. So I'd be like, okay, tell me what you know. And then I would inform them of more of an in-depth history of origami. Like, origami is a Japanese art of folding paper into decorative shapes and figures. It originally started in China, but they brought it up to Japan. I would tell the kids about that. And I would be like, okay, I'm pretty sure two-dimensional and three-dimensional is the kindergarten standard. So I'd be like, do we know the difference between two-dimensional shapes and three-dimensional shapes? Ideally, they would if they did not explain. I would tell them, usually origami is three-dimensional, so that means that it's like this perfume lid is a three-dimensional shape. It's not two-dimensional. Today, we're just going to make two-dimensional origami, even though it's typically three-dimensional. I want to emphasize that to the kids because I don't want them to think that origami is something that it's not. So after we did our explanation of this is our goal for the lesson, this is what we're trying to learn, and after I was like, okay, this is what origami is, this is what we're doing, that's when I would actually get into the origami. So in order to make this little paper house, I want you to look at it. First, we have to fold our paper. You start with a square paper, by the way, if you want to do this at home. You start with your square paper and you have to fold it in half perfectly. And I am not worried about the kids not knowing what in half means because I feel like they know what that means. But by doing this with the paper, they're going to have a visual. And we're not just doing origami. We're also going to draw, and we're going to use shapes and stuff to show the fractions. So just tune in because I don't want them to just have one model of what a fraction is. But this is the fun activity, the origami. So I'll be like, okay guys, first we have to fold our paper in half. And then I would ask them, okay, open your papers. I would want them to open their papers. And at this point we open it up and I'm like, do we see the crease in the middle? We have one whole paper, but it's broken into two parts. I would start to talk about that. And I would say, now we're going to label the parts. Ideally in a classroom, I would have some kind of dot cam so that the kids could watch on the screen. But I'm in the basement of Elizabeth Rogers. I'm just going to do it right here. And I'll pick it up and show you. So I would have the kids write one half on either side of this. I would want them to do that on either side of the fold. Then we would want to talk about numerators and denominators. So then I would have them label the top part of our fraction as the numerator and the bottom half as our denominator. them do this on one side, then I'll do it on one side. Then I would want to talk about, okay, have we heard the words numerator and denominator before? Okay, yes we have, no we haven't. I'm going to say no they haven't. And then I would start to explain, okay, so numerator is the number that's on top, and the denominator is the number that's on the bottom. I want them to look for a pattern. Why do we think that 1/2 is like this? I would want them to be able to identify it's one, like this is one part of two things. They may not be able to do that, but I would want them to look for the pattern. But I don't know if they can do that with just this. But I want to have this explained before we start doing more folds. So we're going to talk about numerator and denominator. And I'm going to say, okay, the numerator, and again, I would want them to, this is something that I would be showing on the screen. I would want them to be writing with me. I'd be like, okay, so our top number in our fraction is how many parts we have. I guess is how I would explain that. Like the top number is how many parts, how many individual parts you're holding in your hand. Right now we're holding in our hand, this is 1/2. We're holding both of these, this is 2/2. So I want them to know that the numerator is the part that we're holding. The part that we have, that we're holding. And the bottom number is just the whole thing. The whole number, the whole parts, all of the parts. It's the number, the denominator is the number that represents the total number of parts that we broke a number into. I don't know that they would get that. I would work on phrasing that in a better way in the classroom. I wouldn't say that like that. I think I would say the bottom number is how many parts our whole is broken into. And then again, ideally they're writing this with me, we're taking notes. So then, now that we've folded this in half, our next step is going to be we want to fold it back up, and then we're going to fold again. We're going to take our half, and then we're going to fold our half in two again. Now, at this point, I'm going to have them unfold again. And I'm going to ask the class, because we want this to be student-led, we want them to engage with me. And I'm going to be like, how many parts has our paper been folded into now? How many parts of the whole paper do we have right now? And they'd say, oh, it's been broken into 4 parts. It's been broken into 4 parts, whatever. And I would say, okay. So if we have one of these 4 parts, what fraction is that? What is that? And you know, they would say 1 numerator, 4 denominator, because I didn't explain fourths. But I'd be like, okay, good job. So then we're going to go through and we're going to label each individual part 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. And again, I'm showing this to them and they're watching, they're doing this on their paper too, because I want them to have it labeled the same way that I do. I want them to understand 4 parts. One of these is a 4th. Then we would transition again, and we would be turning our little paper into 8s. So we've already got 2 folds. We have to fold it back up. Now this part's a little bit more tricky. We open it to where it's a half. Again, I'll be like, what is this? I would stop and ask them. And we'll say, what is this? And they tell me, oh, that's a half. There might be a misconception. They might get confused because this has a line in the middle. So, I don't know, they might say, oh, you're holding 2/4, but I would take that. Like, I wouldn't say, no, that's not a half, but I would ask. Then we have to fold in till we meet the middle. This is a lesson for 3rd grade students, so I feel like they can do this. Folding, I don't feel like this is crazy folding, but I do see how there could be room for some confusion. If we were struggling with the folding, if I realized, then I just wouldn't do this lesson. I would find some other way to introduce fractions as we do the folding. So it's like we have these 2 little doors, and then I would say, okay, unfold your paper. I would have them unfold the paper again. And then I would say, okay, how many pieces is our paper broke up into? I would ask them. And I would wait for them to say, oh, it's 8 pieces. And then I would say, okay, so if I have 1 out of the 8 pieces, what kind of fraction do I have? And they would say, oh, that's 1/8. And I would say, good job. And then we would go through and we would label each individual part as an 1/8. And we're almost at the end of our craft. I don't know if I would start with the craft if I was actually doing this in the classroom. I might start with the drawings, but that's okay. So I would say, okay, we need to get back to where we were. Again, children, this would take longer than it took me. And I understand that. And this next part, this is literally just the craft part. This has nothing to do with fractions. But if you are making a paper house right now at home, Dr. Vera, while you're watching, you have to stick your finger in the fold until you get like this triangle. I have to lay it down to do this, I'm sorry. Again, in an ideal world with children, I would have a dog cam so they could watch while I do this. Until you get like this little thing. Then you do the same thing on the other side. And I was having them right in there. So the little house has birds on it, but that's okay. And this is the finished house. And we can look at mine that's decorated. This is the decorated version. I would let them decorate, but I would not let them decorate until we have to draw pictures. I want them to draw pictures and show me their own understanding of fractions before we go into the decoration portion. So the next thing that I would be saying to them is like, okay, good job. Now before we decorate, we're gonna try to show fractions, and I want you to draw. I want you to work with your table group because we're in a mathematical community. We're all capable thinkers, and I want everybody to be engaged. So you're gonna sit with your table group, and I would give out a piece of paper. I would get them a lot of piece of paper. And I would say, okay, on your piece of paper, I want you to draw me a representation of the fraction 2, if I have 2 parts of 5. If I have 2 pieces of a whole that's been broken into 5. So it's 2/5, and I would write this on my dry erase board that I don't have back here. 2/5. And then I would walk around, watch what they were doing in their table groups. I have my little checklist to see if they're meeting the little standards that I set for them during the lesson. I would be watching around. I would be watching them, seeing if they're understanding. And I decided that I would show you some of the drawings that I think that they would make, because some of them I would not want the students to do that. So we mostly, like an area model, the lines, the rectangle, and the circle, I think that's okay. I would say that that's a good representation of 2/5. I would tell them good job. I would be happy with that. The dots, pretty similar to the area model. I would say that's good. I would accept that. This, where we have 2 dots over 5 dots, I don't know that I would accept that, because yeah, it is 2/5 that they're not understanding. Like, they might understand, but this is still 2 parts. Like, I feel like for an introduction of fractions, they need to be able to show that they have 5 things and 2 of them are different. Like, 2 of them have to be shaded in. So I don't think that if I saw that, I would say that's not great. We don't want to do that. I would try to deter them from doing that. And then my next one, I also would give them some kind of manipulative. After I let them draw 2/5, I'd say, okay, I'm going to give you some manipulatives. Ideally, in a classroom, I would have counters or something like that, but we're not in a classroom, and we were in my dorm room, so I got the lids of my perfume, and to demonstrate what the students might do, we're going to pretend these are counters. This is like 3 counters. Altogether, we have 5 lids. 2 of the 5 lids are clear, so that could be a way that the students show. Like, if it was counters, they could flip it upside down and see. you know, like this would be 2 white counters and 3 of the red counters. And I'd be like, okay, good job. That's a really good representation. Because I want them to be able to draw it, and I want them to be able to do the folds, obviously. And I want them to be able to show me with physical things that they can do fractions. And then I would want them to also do 3/6. So again, I would be like, if I have 3 pieces, if I have a piece of paper and it's broke up into 6 pieces, one whole is broke up into 6 pieces, and I have 3 of those pieces, what fraction is that? I would ask them, and then let them call out, that's 3/6, that's 3/6, and I'd be like, good job, guys. Then I would write that on my imaginary whiteboard that I have back here, and then I'd say, okay, I want you to draw it like we just did for 2/5, and I want you to show me using manipulatives of your table. I don't think I would make them do both. I think I would let them pick after they'd show me that they could do one or the other, because I want them to have choice. So I'd say, show me however you want to show me. At this point, I don't want them to be working as a table group. I want them to be working individually, because, okay, you can do it in a group, but I want to see that you can also do it on your own. And I do feel like 3/6 is harder than what we did together as a class. So I may modify that in my lesson. If I had noticed that they couldn't do the 1/8, the 1/2, the 1/4, I'd be like, okay, we need to focus on 1 over a number. I wouldn't be asking them to do 2 over a number. I wouldn't want them to do 2 parts of something. I don't feel like they could get that. But I also have sample drawings of the 3/6. This is a big exclamation point for me, because yeah, we've got 6 pieces and 3 of them are shaded in, but they're not equally broke up. The whole is not equally broke up. So if I saw a student do that, I would use that as a opportunity to be like, hey, with fractions, they have to be equal parts. So I would stop that. Also, I do like the circle, but if I saw them drawing a lot of circles and trying to fill it in like that, I would be like, that's gonna be kind of hard to equally break up, but okay, you tried. Like, I get that you were doing the right thing. And again, this is that same 3/6. Like, yeah, it is 3/6, but you're not showing me that you have 6 parts of a whole and you're coloring in 3 of them. So yeah, that's what I would do for my fraction lesson with what I had in my dorm room. Again, real classroom, I would have counters and stuff, but I was just in the dorm. But that's all. Have a good day, Dr. Vieira.